I overheard my husband tell his therapist I never loved her. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. They say you never forget the moment you fall in love. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Or maybe it's the truth, but the truth is cruel. I met David at a coffee shop in 2012. I was 26, working as a graphic designer, thinking I had my life figured out. He was standing in line ahead of me, and he turned around because I'd accidentally stepped on his foot. He smiled, this genuine, slightly embarrassed smile, and said he was sorry for existing in my path. I laughed. He ordered the same coffee I was about to order. We joked about being coffee soulmates. He asked for my number. For 6 months, everything was perfect. He remembered how I liked my coffee. He showed up to my work events. He laughed at my jokes, held my hand when we walked, kissed me like he meant it. We talked until 3 a.m. about everything. Our dreams, our fears, stupid childhood memories. I told him things I'd never told anyone. He told me he'd never felt this way before. When he proposed 2 years later, I said yes, before he finished the question. My parents cried. My friends threw me a shower. I bought a white dress that made me feel like I was finally becoming who I was supposed to be. I genuinely believed that David and I had something rare. I believed we were the kind of couple that would make it. The wedding was beautiful. Small, intimate, exactly what we both wanted. I remember looking at him during the vows, and he looked back at me with those dark eyes, and I felt so certain. So absolutely certain that this was forever. People tell you that marriage is hard work. They say the honeymoon phase ends, that reality sets in. They make it sound like a natural progression, like erosion inevitable and gradual. No one tells you what it really feels like. No one tells you about the specific moment when you realize you're sleeping next to a stranger. It wasn't dramatic. There was no affair, no betrayal, no screaming fights. It was quieter than that. It was worse than that. The first year was still good. The second year, too. But somewhere around year 3, David got busy. Really busy. His job at the marketing firm started demanding more hours. He'd come home late, tired, distracted. I'd make dinner, and he'd eat it while scrolling through his phone. I'd tell him about my day, and he'd nod in all the right places, but I could tell he wasn't really listening. I tried not to let it bother me. Everyone goes through phases. I threw myself into my work, too. Maybe we were just in a busy season. Maybe once things settled down, we'd get back to normal. They didn't settle down. By year 5, we were living like roommates who were legally bound to each other. We'd have conversations, sure, but they were always about logistics. Whose turn is it to pay the electric bill? Did you pick up milk? Can you move your car so I can get out of the driveway? The conversations we used to have, the deep, vulnerable 3 a.m. conversations. Those disappeared somewhere between his promotion and my decision to go freelance. I'd reach for his hand during movies, and he'd hold it for a while, then pull away to get popcorn. I'd try to initiate sex, and he'd say he was too tired. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went, and the next tomorrow and the next. Eventually, I stopped trying. It was less painful that way. I started paying attention to the small things. The way he didn't look at me when we talked anymore. The way he'd spend hours on his phone but never seemed to have anything interesting to tell me about. The way he flinched sometimes when I touched him. The way he stopped kissing me good morning, then stopped kissing me goodbye, then stopped kissing me entirely. I felt it happening, this slow disappearance of intimacy, this gradual transformation of love into something else. Obligation, maybe, or habit. But I also felt myself adapting to it. People are so good at adaptation. We're like frogs in slowly boiling water, barely noticing as the temperature rises until we're already cooked. One night, lying in the dark, I asked him if he was happy. He didn't answer for so long that I thought he was asleep. Then he said, "What does happy even mean?" I didn't have an answer for that. I fell asleep feeling emptier than I had in years. By year 7, I was drowning in quiet desperation. I thought about divorce sometimes, but not seriously. Divorce was something that happened to other people. People who weren't careful enough. People who didn't try hard enough. I was the kind of person who made things work. I was strong. I was devoted. I told myself in love. So when David suggested therapy, something shifted inside me. It was like someone had thrown me a life preserver. He came home one evening and said, "I think I need to talk to someone. A professional. I'm not doing well." He didn't elaborate. He didn't say he thought we were struggling. He said, I need. But in my desperation, I made it mean we. I thought he was finally ready to fix things. I thought he was ready to fix us. I hugged him and said, "That's great. That's really great. I think that will help." He held me stiffly and didn't hug back, but I was too busy being hopeful to notice. I found him a therapist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She had good reviews and specialized in anxiety and depression. He saw her every Thursday at 3 p.m. I marked it on my calendar like it was sacred, because it felt sacred. This was the moment where things would turn around. This was where David would finally get help, where he'd finally be happy, where we'd finally be happy again. I started planning. Not consciously, but in the way you plan a future you desperately want to believe in. Maybe after therapy, we could try couples counseling. Maybe we could go on a vacation, just the two of us. Maybe we could try for a baby, something I'd wanted for years but felt too ashamed to ask for when things were so cold between us. Maybe I wanted to support him. I'd text him encouraging messages before his appointments. "You've got this. I'm proud of you for working on yourself. I'm here for you." He'd respond with thumbs up emojis, sometimes no response at all. In the weeks that followed, I convinced myself I could see changes. He seemed lighter somehow, more present. Or maybe I was just imagining it because I wanted it so badly. Maybe I was so desperate for things to be better that I was hallucinating improvement. I told myself stories about how this was going to go. David would have his breakthrough. He'd realize how much I meant to him, how much he'd taken me for granted. He'd come home and look at me the way he used to, like I was the most interesting person in the world. He'd run his fingers through my hair and tell me he was sorry, that he'd been lost, but now he was found. We'd make love like we actually cared about each other again. We'd rebuild. I clung to those stories like they were oxygen. Without them, I didn't know who I was. I was David's wife. That was my identity. That was everything. But something was still wrong. David was still distant, still cold, still seemed to be going through the motions of being married without actually being married. The therapy didn't seem to be helping, or if it was, he wasn't sharing any of it with me. I asked him about his sessions. "How did it go? What did you talk about?" He'd give vague answers. "Oh, just stuff. It was fine." Or, "The usual, you know." I didn't know. I wanted to know. I wanted to be led into this new world where he was supposedly healing himself. But he was keeping it from me. He'd change the subject quickly. Sometimes I'd catch him talking on the phone, with whom, I don't know, and he'd hang up abruptly when I entered the room. He started keeping his phone screen away from me. He'd take walks around the neighborhood alone, something he'd never done before. He asked me to give him space to work through his personal issues. The hope I'd been clinging to started to curdle into anxiety. I began imagining things. What if he was talking to Dr. Mitchell about me? What if she was telling him that I was the problem? What if my existence was actually making him unhappy, and therapy was the first step before he left me? I lost weight without trying. I couldn't sleep properly. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my mind racing with terrible thoughts. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, listening to David breathe beside me, wondering if he was awake too. If he was also counting down the days until he could get out of this marriage. I started to resent the therapy. It was supposed to help us, but instead, it felt like it was driving a wedge between us. He'd come home from his sessions more withdrawn than before, like whatever he was discussing was draining him, hollowing him out. And I was left outside, wondering, imagining, slowly going insane. One week, he asked if he could change his therapy sessions to Thursdays at 4 p.m. His office was no longer accommodating 3 p.m. appointments, apparently. I said, of course, it's fine, whatever works. But something about the change made me nervous. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just paranoid. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The Thursday I heard those words started like any other day. I woke up, checked my email, made a cup of tea. David was already at work. He'd left early, as he did most days now. We barely saw each other anymore. He was getting ready before I woke up. I was already in bed by the time he came home. I had a meeting with a client that was supposed to end at 3:30, but the client was indecisive, and we were running behind. We didn't wrap up until nearly 4 p.m. The client's office was only 2 blocks away from Dr. Mitchell's building. I remembered that David's session had been moved to 4 p.m. I thought, maybe I could walk over and pick him up. Surprise him. We could grab dinner together. Maybe it would be nice, just the two of us, without phones or distractions. I told the client I'd send over the mock-ups by email and headed out. The building was one of those old Victorian houses that had been converted into offices. Lots of therapists and consultants worked there. I found Dr. Mitchell's office 3rd floor. The door was slightly ajar. I could hear voices from inside, but they weren't loud or distinct. I thought about knocking, but decided to wait in the hallway instead. I didn't want to interrupt a session in progress. I'd just wait for David to come out. I sat down on a bench in the hallway and pulled out my phone. I was scrolling through Instagram when I heard him. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. It's the voice I hear every morning and every night, or at least the voice I used to hear when he still talked to me. I never loved her. The words were so clear, so distinct. 4 little words that rewired my entire brain in an instant. I froze. My phone fell from my hand onto the floor with a small clatter that seemed impossibly loud. I held my breath, terrified he'd heard it, terrified he'd open the door and find me there. I've been pretending for years, David's voice continued. He sounded calm, almost relieved. I don't even know why I married her, honestly. It felt like the next logical step. Everyone expected it. She expected it. So I just went along with it. But I've never actually loved her. Not even close. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The hallway seemed to be getting smaller, the air getting thinner. This wasn't happening. This was a dream. This was a nightmare. This was anything but real. How long have you been feeling this way? Dr. Mitchell's voice muffled through the door, but unmistakable in its professional curiosity. Since, I don't know, maybe 6 months into the marriage? I realized I didn't actually like her as a person. She annoys me. The way she laughs, the way she talks about her job, the way she tries to be supportive, it's also exhausting. I've been faking it for years because it's easier than the alternative. Faking it. Years. I sat there on a wooden bench in a hallway that smelled like lemon cleaner and despair, and I felt my entire life collapse into a single point. Every conversation was a lie. Every "I love you" was a performance. Every moment we'd shared was fake. Have you considered telling her? Dr. Mitchell asked. There was a pause. I could imagine him sitting there, thinking about this, thinking about how to end me without too much inconvenience. No, he finally said. It would destroy her. And honestly, it's just easier to keep going. She's used to me now. We have a routine. It's fine. I just needed to talk about it with someone, get it off my chest. I feel better already. He felt better. He was relieved. While I was sitting in a hallway, my entire understanding of reality shattering like glass. I don't know how long I sat there. Time felt distorted, broken. Could have been seconds. Could have been hours. My hands were shaking so badly that I couldn't hold my phone. My heart was beating so fast I thought it would burst out of my chest. I heard the shuffle of movement inside the office, the sound of chairs scraping. The session was ending. He was about to come out. He was about to walk past me and maybe smile at me with those lies he'd been telling for years. I grabbed my phone and ran. I didn't walk. I ran down the stairs like I was being chased, like the truth was a physical thing chasing me through the building. I made it to the street and kept going, not paying attention to where I was headed. I just needed to get away. Away from that office, away from that building, away from the man I'd thought I loved but apparently never knew at all. I found myself in a park I'd never been to before. There was a bench under a large oak tree, and I sat down on it and let my mind break into pieces. I replayed our entire relationship, but this time with the knowledge that it had all been a lie. Our first kiss fake. His proposal fake. Our wedding day fake. Every anniversary, every Christmas morning, every moment we'd spent together was suddenly revealed to be nothing but a performance. I thought about the nights he'd said, "I love you." How many times? Hundreds? Thousands? All of them lies. All of them tests to see how convincingly he could deceive me. And I had believed every single one because I was stupid enough to trust him. Stupid enough to think that the love I felt for him was reciprocated. Stupid enough to think that I was special to him. I thought about the moments when I'd felt him pulling away. All those times I'd tried to reach for him, tried to bridge the gap, tried to save something that was already dead or had never been alive in the first place. I'd been trying to resuscitate a corpse. I thought about my friends, my family, everyone I'd told about how much I loved this man. "He's my soulmate," I'd said. "We're so lucky to have found each other." What would I tell them now? That I was completely and utterly wrong. That the only person I'd built my life around had been laughing at me behind my back? I cried. Not the gentle, cleansing kind of crying. This was ugly, body-shaking, gasping for air kind of crying. The kind where you feel like you're drowning on dry land. People walking through the park gave me a wide berth. I didn't care. I didn't care about anything anymore. I realized I didn't have any of my own money. Over the years, I'd transitioned to freelancing so I could be more available to the marriage. I had some savings, but not much. The house was in both our names, but the mortgage was primarily his responsibility. I didn't even know if I was on his health insurance or if that was through his job. I had no idea how to untangle myself from this life we'd built together. And beneath all of that was the realization that I'd built my entire identity around a lie. I was David's wife. I was the woman who was married to a man who didn't love me. And without that identity, I didn't know who I was. I sat on that bench as the sun went down, watching the light drain out of the sky, and I tried to figure out my next move. I don't know how long I was gone. Hours, certainly. Maybe more. Eventually, I made my way home. My phone had buzzed twice David asking if I wanted him to pick up dinner on his way home. As if everything was normal. As if our entire life together wasn't built on quicksand. I didn't respond. I was in the kitchen when he arrived. I'd made tea and was sitting at the table, staring at the cup without actually drinking it. My face was probably puffy from crying, but I didn't care. Let him see what he'd done to me. Let him see the evidence of his cruelty. He came home like he always did, dropping his bag by the door, loosening his tie, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired. He looked like a man with a long day, not a man who'd just admitted to nearly a decade of systematic lying. "Hey," he said, walking into the kitchen. "How was your day?" I looked at him. Really looked at him, trying to see if there was any sign of the confession, any crack in the facade. But he was smooth. So smooth. Practiced, probably. He'd been doing this for so long that it was second nature to him now. "Fine," I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. "How was yours?" Good. Work was busy, therapy was helpful. I think I'm working through some things. He said this casually, like he wasn't talking about how he'd never loved me. Like he wasn't talking about how he'd been faking it for years. That's good, I heard myself say. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, like I was watching myself from above, like this wasn't really happening. He opened the fridge and pulled out a beer. I'm thinking about ordering Thai tonight. You okay with that? Sure. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something flickered across his face. Maybe recognition, maybe fear. For just a second, I thought he knew that I knew. I thought the jig was up. But then he smiled. That same smile he'd given me in the coffee shop all those years ago, and the moment passed. You look pretty today, he said. It wasn't true. I looked like hell. He wasn't complimenting me. He was testing me, seeing if I'd believe his lie. And I did. Or I acted like I did. We were both acting now. Thanks, I said. He ordered Thai. We ate dinner in front of the TV like we usually did. We didn't talk. He scrolled on his phone. I pretended to watch a show I'd seen a dozen times. When it was time for bed, I went to our bedroom and he went to his office to finish some work. We didn't sleep in the same room. We hadn't for months. I hadn't even noticed it was a problem because the real problems were so much bigger. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to have a screaming match or an emotional scene. I was going to leave, quietly and with dignity. I was going to take what I needed and disappear from his life the way he'd already disappeared from mine. The next morning, I made a plan. I didn't have much time, but I didn't need much. I called my friend Sarah and asked if I could stay with her for a while. I didn't explain why. She didn't ask. Over the next 2 weeks, while David was at work, I slowly packed my things. Nothing obvious. A suitcase here, a box there, things I stuffed under the bed. I went to a lawyer and started the divorce paperwork. I opened a new bank account with just my name on it. I transferred my 401k to my personal control. I printed out bank statements and credit reports and anything else I might need. I was methodical about it. Careful. I didn't want him to suspect anything until I was ready. The hardest part was deciding what to do about the note. Did I owe him an explanation? Did he deserve to know that I knew? That I'd heard every single lie, every casual dismissal of my existence? In the end, I didn't write much. Just, I know you never loved me. I found a place to stay. I'm filing for divorce. My lawyer will be in touch. Please don't contact me except through legal counsel. I left it on the kitchen counter where he couldn't miss it. On a Friday evening, while he was at his beloved therapy session, I packed my final bag and left. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't cry. I just walked out and got in a cab and went to Sarah's apartment, and I never went back. The next few weeks were a blur of emails from lawyers, financial sorting, and the slow process of untangling a decade of intertwined lives. David tried to call me, but I didn't answer. He sent me messages. What's going on? Why are you doing this? Can we talk about this? I didn't respond. He deserved nothing from me. He contested the divorce initially. He wanted to know what happened, what he'd done wrong, where things went sideways. His lawyer suggested mediation. I refused. I didn't want to sit across from him in a room and pretend that we had anything left to salvage. 3 months into the separation, I ran into a mutual friend. She told me that David had moved on to a new relationship. He was seeing someone, a woman named Jennifer. They'd apparently met through his therapist's referral program or something. He was very happy, according to the grapevine. He was very happy. Sarah asked me how I felt about that. I told her I felt nothing. And it was true. I'd cried myself out. I'd raged in private. I'd spent weeks dissecting every moment of our relationship, searching for signs I'd missed, clues that should have told me the truth. But eventually, I realized something. The truth didn't matter in the way I thought it did. Yes, David had lied to me. Yes, he'd wasted years of my life. Yes, he'd let me love him while he felt nothing in return. But he'd also freed me. By being honest in the one moment where he thought no one was listening, he'd given me the gift of knowing the truth. And once I knew the truth, I could leave. I could build a new life. I could actually heal. The divorce was finalized 8 months after I left. It was relatively clean because I didn't want to fight. I took less than I was entitled to. I just wanted to be free. A year later, I was working on a new design project when I got a message request on Instagram. It was from David. "I need to explain," it said. "I'm in therapy with a new therapist now, and she's helped me realize how terrible I was. I want to apologize. I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you, and I'm working on becoming a better person." I sat there, reading the message, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing for what could have been, just a vast, empty nothing. I thought about responding, thought about giving him the satisfaction of acknowledging his apology, but then I realized he didn't deserve my words. He'd already taken enough from me. I blocked him. I was in a coffee shop a few weeks later when I ran into Dr. Mitchell, or at least I'm pretty sure it was her, a woman with short gray hair wearing a professional blazer ordering a cappuccino. Our eyes met for just a second, and then we both looked away. I didn't know if she recognized me. I didn't know if she remembered David or if he was just one of 100 patients she saw every week. I wanted to ask her, "Did you know? Did you realize you were helping him manage his lies more effectively?" But I said nothing. I finished my coffee and left. Now, a full year after that day in the hallway, I'm someone new. I have my own apartment. I have my own income that I control completely. I have friends who know me as more than just David's wife. I have dreams that are just mine. I have a therapist who's helping me rebuild my sense of self, piece by shattered piece. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gone to pick him up that day. Would I still be at home, acting out the role of the loving wife while he counted down the days until he could escape? How much longer would I have stayed, clinging to a love that only existed in my mind? But I don't spend too much time on those questions anymore. They're not productive. What I do know is this: I was right all along. Love is rare. Connection is rare. Finding someone who actually sees you and values you is rare. What David and I had was not love. It was a convenient arrangement that benefited him and destroyed me. But now I know what it's like to be on my own. I know what it's like to look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. I know what it's like to make decisions based on what I want, not what someone else expects of me. And maybe in the future, I'll find someone who actually loves me. Someone who doesn't have to force it or fake it. Someone who wakes up and looks at me the way I used to look at him, with wonder and gratitude and genuine affection. Or maybe I won't. And maybe that's okay too. Either way, I'm no longer waiting for a man to complete me. I'm no longer clinging to the possibility of being loved. I'm no longer living for someone else's happiness while ignoring my own. I'm finally free. And that, I'm learning, is a kind of love too. A love for myself. A love I should have been practicing all along.